Y'all ready to roll?
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 6th episode of Civil Discourse. My name is Trevor Batson. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'm happy to have Miles Haynes and Mike Getz here. Appreciate y'all coming in and taking your time to get in here. We're going to have a discussion about Beaumont future, Beaumont City Council, and a few other things. First off, thank y'all for coming in.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. So, a lot of different things to get into here. Let's just start with, I know because y'all both done this a million times, but just in case somebody's watching that needs to be informed, I'm going to cut it to you, Mike, and just a little bit about yourself. And, go ahead.
Well, sure. Okay, so I've been on city council since 2011. I'm a local guy. I grew up in Port Arthur. I went to Thomas Jefferson, graduated from Lamar University in 1978 with a degree in education, and I've lived in every part of Beaumont. I've lived in the North End, the South End, Central Beaumont, and I've lived in the West End since the 80s. And I represent part of the West End. It's Ward 2, and I really enjoy doing what I'm doing. I have been an attorney for 30 years, and I retired from my law practice last year. And I have the time, the drive, the ambition to continue to do what I love to do best, which is public service. I'm married to Allison Nathan Getz, who is your elected tax assessor collector. We have 3 adult children between us, all successful. And, I love Beaumont and want to see it grow and continue to do the things that I have been doing for the last decade to serve the constituents that voted me in office.
Very good. Has it been 10 years or so on the city council?
10 years on city council.
Okay.
I was first elected in 2011.
Okay, very good, very good. Miles, running against the man. Talk about yourself a little bit.
Yeah, I've been in Beaumont for about 14 years. It's been an exciting time for me. I got my undergraduate degree here at Lamar University. I got my master's degree. My family is here. I've met my wife actually in Ward 2 at Starbucks. We had I had our baby here, and so we're excited about being in Ward 2 and understanding the needs of our community. I've been involved through the Beaumont Chamber, the Beaumont Community Players, through Rotaract, Leadership Beaumont. I've been on the steering committee. I've volunteered in so many fashions. I've wrote grants. I've walked in Carver Terrace, Lewis Manor. That's the west end of Port Arthur. That's why I began to really understand the grassroots side of serving people, and there are many aspects of serving. And so for me, I've been a lifelong servant, and I think that's the skill set you need to be on city council, is be a servant, being humble, being open and listening. I have that skill set, and I'm excited to, be a candidate for city council Ward 2.
Very good, very good. So just so people have a clear idea, give us a rough cut of Ward 2 geographically.
Well, Ward 2 runs all the way from the Willow Creek area out there by I-10 and Major Drive. And as you proceed to go north, it goes all the way over to Folsom Drive as you follow Major Drive. And it covers additions off of Major Drive, and it comes north. It encompasses Amelia, Caldwood, the Barrington additions, all those newer additions off of Major Drive, where Miles lives over on Bluebonnet. There's the village area out there. There's a Fairfield addition out there. So that's in that part of town. As you come into the center towards the city, it encompasses areas like Amelia. It encompasses the Dowling West neighborhood. It encompasses the Caldwood neighborhood. It encompasses what I call the Flowers streets over there around Sally Curtis in that area. So it's a big, far-ranging, reaching area. Beaumont West Edition, the area around Rogers Park. That's all Ward 2.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up in Stone Circle, which is right there off Shakespeare, and all that, that nice neighborhood over there. So as far as when you talk about, or when you have conversations about the future of that ward, or the future of the city in general, but as far as expansions go, does Dowling Road come up most of the time? Because especially with that new
Dowling Road comes up a lot, and some people saying, "Oh, that's Mike Getz's project." It's not Mike Getz's project. That project was put on the books when Evelyn Lord was the mayor, and it's just sat there, and it sat there, and it sat there. And I'm the first council member, I guess, in a long time that's actually tried to move it forward. And everybody says it's a great project, but nobody is really trying to do anything to fund it and push it forward. I do think we missed the opportunity to build it when we had the royalties come in from the airport. That was a $54 million windfall to the city of Beaumont, and it all had to be used for streets. And what we ended up doing was completely rebuilding Washington Boulevard, and we put in Northwest Parkway. We rebuilt 7th Street, and that's all fine. And this predated my time on council, so you know the money was there, and the Washington Boulevard project was already on the books when I got in there. They'd already engineered it, and they'd started all that. That $34 million on Washington Boulevard, I think, would have been better applied to doing the Dowling extension. And I think Washington Boulevard should have received an asphalt overlay, just like they have done on the other parts of Dowling and on parts of Delaware and on parts of Lucas and what they're currently doing on Helbig. Had we done that, we would have been able to not only give Washington Boulevard a new look and enhance that street, we would have been able to have built the Dowling extension. Why that's important? Because once they tried to reconstruct Washington Boulevard completely, they ran into issues in digging up the street and re-pouring everything, and it actually made the project more expensive. In hindsight, it probably would have been better just to do an asphalt overlay on it instead of ripping everything up. It would have gone faster. They're still working on that project. It's been a couple years now. It would have gone faster. It would have been less impact economically to the merchants that are up and down Washington Boulevard. Because when you live or work on a street and you have your business on a street and it's all torn up and customers can't get to it, it's a problem. So it would have been less negative impact there to just do an asphalt overlay, and we could have done the Dowling extension. And that would have, while you do the Dowling extension, the city manager's on record as saying there is not any public service project that we could do that would offer more economic vitality than the Dowling extension. If you can imagine the desire to have a business address of Dowling and I-10, that would lock in some really great merchants. You could probably look for another Super Walmart or Costco. That would be a prestige address to have something.
Sure. Okay. Miles, when you hear him talk about money better spent over on Dowling as opposed to Washington, do you agree with that? Do you think that's a smart move? Are you thinking?
Well, I think we got to look at the model of commercial real estate, right? I think the future of commercial real estate will be totally different. You look at places in Houston like the Galleria, and there are hotels inside the Galleria.
Get a little bit closer on that.
Come a little closer, sorry.
I just wanted to hear you.
I think we have to review the model, right? We're projecting out that commercial sales as far as like people going inside the store, and we're probably not accounting for e-commerce. A lot of people shop online nowadays, and so commercial real estate is being utilized a little bit more creatively. And so I think sometimes we limit ourselves when we're projecting out. What kind of research are we using for this? And I'm a big guy on data. Like, that's part of my platform is to develop ward-specific data so that we know, based on our median income and the behavior in our area, county, city, however you want to look at it, this business is best, right? We already have a Sam's not too far. I'm not saying you can't have a Costco, but I think we're projecting on the commercial sales when in reality, the whole commercial real estate model was probably going to be different. Like, it's going to have to be multi-purpose usage. Like, you look at the Galleria at the bottom of the stores, and then you have housing and things of that nature. So there are different ways they're paying for that same facility. I think the behavior or the consumer behavior has changed. E-commerce is something that's on the rise. So we just want to make sure that when we are moving towards certain projects like that, are we accounting for the new society, the new spending habits? That's the way I would look at it.
And I know there's people that hear both sides. Some are thinking, hey, expand. Let's build the economy down there and all that. And other people probably thinking, because I've had conversations with people, and it's like, well, if we talk about building more down there, some people are like, hey, look how the mall's doing right now. It's not doing very well, And now why that is exactly, and all that. Like you said, some people are bringing up the point of people aren't going to the stores as much, and how much that we're starting to maybe see
so many Amazon packages arriving at
right,
home.
right.
My wife, she shops on Amazon like a lot of people do, and so it's not saying the stores are not making money, but I think we need to look at this post-pandemic style of economy that we're going to need to have in the city of Beaumont. I mean, and that conversation starts in a ward. It obviously is a bigger conversation than city council,
Sure.
but that impacts city council, I believe.
Mike?
Well, not all of that Dowling extension would be retail. A lot of it would be residential. And I've already seen renderings of what it would look like as it would come in a little bit. I guess that would be east of Willow Creek, and it would be a little bit west of where the Crescent is. And it would be kind of a planned residential development. And in terms of data, I'm a pretty big data guy myself, so I check with our city planning director as to what that land is currently worth out there that would go alongside where the proposed extension would be. And currently the value of that land is $4.9 million. But fully developed, it would be $373 million. And then currently we get a little less than $35,000 a year in property taxes. The city of Beaumont receives that from what's out there now. Fully developed, we would receive over $2 million a year. And so obviously on I-10, and right there on that frontage road, that is prime commercial property. And even with the advent of e-commerce, which of course we all use that, you're still going to have brick and mortar places. You're still going to have restaurants. You're still going to have places where people go to shop. And you made the comment that Parkdale's not doing that well, but if you look at our sales tax data, it's still the number one area in terms of sales tax that the city of Beaumont receives is from the Parkdale area. Mm-hmm. So although it's not what it was when it was first built and had anchor stores at every location, it's adapting itself. You see Parkdale has developed some pad sites in the parking lot so that you've seen merchants come up and you can just drive up to the door. But in terms of the mall itself, like all malls, not just Beaumont, but all malls throughout the country are going to have to reinvent themselves to be able to adjust to changing demographics, changing customer uses. And in fact, in Baytown, they tore down San Jacinto Mall. They're reimagining what that whole retail area is going to look like. So, we're going to have to do some of that thinking outside of the box.
Yeah, I grew up going to that mall.
Right.
I used to think it was so cool,
Right.
But, okay, so, and just to clarify, when we talk about Parkdale Mall, is it just the mall, or is it any surrounding businesses in that?
It's
like
surrounding
Salada
area.
and the Taco, Barnes and Noble, even.
Exactly.
Does that factor into
all of that? It's the Parkdale area, not just necessarily the mall itself.
Okay. So, is there any part? And I'll cut this back to you, Miles. Is there any part that you maybe think that might be cyclical in a certain part of that? Like maybe the cool thing to do now is obviously Amazon and the e-commerce. Do you think are we going to maybe circle back to where the retail thing is the cool thing to do, or that more people are just wanting that kind of shopping experience?
I mean, brick and mortar is never going to go away, but we have to lend ourselves to looking at different tax incentives or things for commercial real estate. That's what I'm saying. We have to have innovation at the table to say, hey, listen, the future growth of sales is different. Mm-hmm. We want the sales tax. How are we going to get the sales tax? Because that's a huge part of a city. That's 30-something% of our 32% of our budget on revenue is sales tax. So we want the sales tax, and we want the business to thrive. So we just don't want to lend the land. Obviously it's the private sector, so we don't control what they do on the land. But we do want to set it up in a way that the city benefits, it grows. Mm-hmm. And right now I think that we're a little stagnant in that area. And so when we keep going with the old model and projecting that this extension is going to do this, that is a projection. That's just me saying, hey, if we had this fully packed out, I would make this much money. We can't guarantee that, right? So if we build on guarantees, those begin to be skewed data, right? Projections is why people acquire things and want to grow it, but I think we need to review it and make sure that we're making a calculated decision. I'm not saying no to it. I'm just saying, we put enough thought into it, because people are buying things a different way nowadays. That's it.
Something a few people messaged me to ask about, and I just, from experience, I know, Mike, you've been there a long time, dealing with the Ford Park thing. Now, that's not part of Ward. Is that part of Ward 2?
Well, it's not even part of the city. It's part of the county.
Okay,
and,
okay.
You know, the whole experiment of Ford Park can kind of show you what happens if you don't think things out. And that's a prime example of that, because that wasn't well thought out when it was conceived and originated by a former county judge, not the one we have now, but, you know, this goes back several years. And it was originally going to be nothing but softball fields, and that would have been great because those softball fields are rocking it. They're in use all the time. But a former county judge thought, well, you know, the Woodlands has Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion. It's doing pretty good, so we ought to be able to do something like that here. And, you know, we can move the fair out of where it's always been since its inception and put that up, you know, and I give them credit for trying to think outside the box. But, you know, when you also start thinking about, okay, you got Cynthia Woods Mitchell Pavilion over in the Woodlands, which is right adjacent to Houston, and artists' contracts seem to, in the language, prevent them from appearing at one location within 100 miles of another location. So we all of a sudden started realizing, after we'd spent I don't know how many millions of dollars in building Ford Park, that we can't get these artists over here. You know, so we're going to second tier, third tier artists. And, you know, people will say, it's not that far to go to Houston. We'll just drive over there and, you know, see, you know, big name acts. And, you know, it just never, I probably can count on both hands the number of performances that I've seen out at the amphitheater out there that were, you know, anything that I'd be interested in. So.
Well, I had questions about it, and I figured I'd bring it up because I don't know how many times I've had a conversation with someone that's lived here for a long time, and they just get mad when they drive by Ford Park. You know?
I understand.
But I guess, like you said, that's a perfect example of, you know.
Yeah, we were going to bring a hockey team, ice hockey in Southeast Texas. Okay, you know, that's you know, an interesting thought, but, you know, we don't play ice hockey in Southeast Texas. We don't know the rules of ice hockey in Southeast Texas. You got a handful of people that were really following, you know, the Beaumont team here is a semi-pro team, but, man, you got to pack the place. You just can't have, you know, a couple dozen people show up and expect to be able to make it. You can't do it.
I remember thinking that when they built it, it's like, how many concerts are they actually going to be able to get in here? Because Houston's right there. Right. Louisiana's right there. You know, you talk about contracts, I'm sure that's, you know, that's a big deal.
Right.
But anyway, I just wanted to touch on that. But back to the Ward 2 area, I mean, is that the future of like maybe a new downtown? Not a new downtown, but as far as, I mean, look where your bars are now. There's nothing downtown, right? You've got, shout out to Madison's, you've got all these, even where my academy is, you've got Little Woodrow's, you've got all this area in the West End just moving up and down, and probably more popping up on Major, I'm assuming, coming up soon. I mean, is that going to be, I mean, do you see a nightlife area, more nightlife area taking place down? I'll go to you, Miles. Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, let me make a point on that
Sure.
last Ford Park.
Sure.
I think, you know, if I'm not mistaken, I think when these entertainers sign a contract, it's like 100 miles. So from Houston, technically, to Ford Park is probably within that time span. I mean, that mileage. So they have to go skip over Louisiana. So that's probably why we got skipped over on a lot of the big name artists. I think they tried, and that's that whole thing of like when we project something out, you know, and then we just look at the end result of that. So when we have these projects on the books and we project them, like it's a possibility, it's a good projection, but we have to look at breaking it down, get the numbers, the behavior of our area. Are we more likely to utilize that facility? Or are you going to use somewhere in a different city like Vidor? You know, different surrounding communities, Nederland, and places like that have places where people just go for country music and all kind of music. And so I think we need more calculated decisions. We need innovation. We need more researched ideas. And so I can't speak to Ford Park, but I think when it comes to the entertainers utilizing that area, I think that may have been something that probably hurt us on that.
And the reason I bring that up, I grew up in my 20s, I was playing rock and roll in the bars. That's what I was doing. And we had a lot, at that time, we had a lot of places to play around town. The nightlife was it was popping. You had Crockett Street, you had 11th Street, it was going down, but now it's just shrunk down to where, and we still have it. I mean, kudos to Frankie and the other guys that are having live music at their places. But and the people, they pack them in there when they have live music. It's almost like people are craving it, you know? So more avenues, because I had people asking me about that. Are we going to have them? How are we going to get a kind of a downtown type area again, you know? Because nothing seems to be happening over there.
Yeah, I think, you know, to get back to that question, we need innovation at the table. We need collaboration. We can't do it alone. You have to work with other people. And I think, you know, we've been stagnant for a long time. You know, people in our community are deciding, older people are deciding, hey, I'm going to retire in Pflugerville or Conroe. And they're not deciding Beaumont. You know, a lot of young families I know, they're shifting off to other cities. And so I think, you know, that's important in how we begin to build for the future. Like, what's sustainable? What is it going to look like? Is crime good here? You know, those are huge factors on why people decide to put things there. I'm glad that the Beaumont Police Officers Association endorsed me. And so it's stuff like that we need to partner and collaborate, making sure that the city feels comfortable. Is this the behavior style of our city? Because we are Beaumont. We are not any other city. And I think sometimes we've made decisions like we're another city, projecting we'll get those kind of results, when in reality it's different. Beaumont is its own community. And it's the hub of really Jefferson County and the other counties. Like Beaumont really, like cities like Silsbee, Sour Lake, Vidor, like all those cities really, and they come in, but it should be at a greater capacity. You know, Beaumont has more to offer than what we've seen over the last decade.
Mike?
You know, I agree that Beaumont has more to offer, but I disagree that Beaumont itself is stagnant, you know, because if you look at Ward 2 and you look at Ward 1, you know, we're killing it out here. We're not stagnant in Ward 2 and Ward 1. You know, downtown, Wards 3 and Wards 4, you know, you could argue that those are stagnant. You can't really say that in Ward 2 and Ward 1. In fact, when we redistrict, because of this last census, we're going to have to give up. When I say we, I'm talking about Wards 2 and Wards 1. We're going to have to give up some of our territory because you're required by law to have each ward roughly the same population. And so we have grown so much that we're going to have to cede some of that boundary area to Wards 3 and Wards 4 so that the populations will be roughly equal. You know, you mentioned downtown. That's in Ward 3. And, you know, why hasn't Crockett Street succeeded? What caused it to fail? I think the city did have a role in Crockett Street, and they failed by not providing adequate security. If you go to 6th Street in Austin, you can't go a block without seeing police officers there. You know, they're on bike, they're on horse, they're, they've got patrol cars, and they're walking. And so, you know, you feel secure. Yeah, things can happen and sometimes have on 6th Street, but you have a strong police presence, and the city fathers and mothers in Austin realized that, you know, this is an economic driver for Austin. 6th Street is an entertainment district, and we want people to feel safe and comfortable coming here. We never provided city police officers to Crockett Street. Crockett Street had to hire them on their own and private security. Well, you know, that eats into their bottom line. So maybe they got a little light on that, and they, you know, didn't have as much police presence as they needed to. A couple of incidents happened, and it really only takes one, but, you know, we had more than one down there, you know, and if a girl gets hassled coming out of her car trying to get into a club, you know, it doesn't take but a couple of times that happened, and the girls say, I don't feel safe. And they stop coming. Girls start coming, guys stop coming. You know, so the whole management concept of Crockett Street kind of fell down there. But the buildings are there, and young people and people that aren't as young, my age, we like to go out and we like to have a nice beverage, and we like to listen to music too. And the buildings are there, and they're ripe to be revitalized. I think the future of downtown is bright, because it is an entertainment district just waiting to happen. You know, we've already designated it as such. And I would love to see some enthusiastic people in the private sector come in and do something with Crockett Street and carry it on over around the corner to Orleans Street, where they've got another set of buildings that could be used as an entertainment district. But you and I remember the Palladium Club, things that were busting downtown, and people will go, but they've got to feel safe, and the music's got to be good, and the restaurants have got to provide good food, and people will go.
What say you, Miles? You think Crockett Street can come back? You think privatization's the way to do it?
I mean, I just have to ask the question to the people who've been in leadership: what have we done to assist in this? Right? Like, what is documented that we know that the city, or like, what is documented? Say, hey, we tried to work with law enforcement this many times. We don't have enough information as citizens, so we're just going off this idea, man. Yeah, it'd be great. Crockett Street could revive, and I would do. What is documented? Where are the numbers? And when we talk about the growth of Ward 1 and 2, are there more renters now than homeowners? Are there more vacant homes in these areas? And so I think we need to do a more in-depth analysis, because I'm not sure. We have a lot of businesses coming and going, but we don't have documentation of how many businesses actually came, survived, and are still here. Obviously, the pandemic is unique, but before the pandemic, we saw businesses come for a little while, then they'll leave. And obviously, those are private sector businesses. But is there anything as a city that we could do to make sure that these businesses stayed here and thrived, because those had jobs for citizens that were here? And so if they left, then they left jobs, and people had to leave their, were released from their responsibility. So I think data is important and not just words, right? We don't have the numbers right now on the growth. We just see buildings going up, but are they 100% capacity? We don't know that. And so I think, though, like, as a fiscally conservative individual, I'm looking at my taxes and saying, is that the most efficient spending process? Right? My taxes have increased over the last decade, but is it efficiently spent? And so those are things that are important to me, and why, like, I'm looking at the city budget and saying, whoa, let's take a step back and review where are the numbers for this projected growth, because the pandemic hit. It hurt our sales tax. It's down about 3.1%. And who knows what it'll be. Obviously the mask mandate has been altered to highly recommended and 100% capacity. Obviously, I think that's probably lended to the business community, and that's their choice. But what are we doing as a city, right, to revitalize where I live at? This is my home. So these are things that are important to me, and I think they should be addressed.
So we'll hit on here's a little hot button topic: masks. So I'm sure y'all both talked about them quite a bit. I'll put it to you this way, because one of my friends, we were talking about it, and the way he worded it stuck with my head. I only ever heard it from somewhere. It was the cost of the quarantine maybe outweighing the effectiveness or the severity of the virus.
Well,
what say you, Mike, on that?
We have had a lot of mixed messaging dating back all the way to when the pandemic first hit. I said from the very beginning, and I still say, don't live in fear, but make wise decisions. And I think that is something that everybody should really carry with them. But we were getting messages from President Trump's leading medical liaisons, like Dr. Fauci. I watched the 60-minute interview where he said there's no need to wear masks. He said if you have a cruise booked on a cruise ship, you can go ahead and feel comfortable on it. And then a few weeks or months later, he's saying something different. And, you've gotten so many mixed messages about it. Do masks help? The science seems to indicate they can, but you've got to wear them right. They don't really help if you wear them down below your nose. And it always, I think, is incredibly hypocritical to say, okay, you can wear your mask while you're sitting there like at a city council meeting, but you can take them off to talk. And I'm thinking, now, wait a minute. If I'm sitting here breathing and I'm 6 feet away from everybody or 10 feet away from everybody, I'm not sure what the mask is going to be doing, but if I take it off to talk and I'm projecting things out of my mouth, it gets into the atmosphere, seems that's when you would need the mask on more. But it was just the opposite, so that never made a lot of sense. Or going through a restaurant, you walk through the restaurant with your mask on, you sit down at the table and you start eating, you obviously take your mask off. It's like magically the virus is going to know when to not come, or when it's crazy stuff, and it can mess with your mind. If you have concerns about being out and around other people, you probably don't need to go out, mask or no mask. If you have a compromised immune system, if you are at risk, you probably need to stay away from other people. We have Waiter, we have all the new technology where you can have things delivered to your house. You have apps on your phone, and you don't really have to go out to do things, and you can have a staycation. You can work from your home, you can do things out of your house. Kids can be educated from their home, not as well as in school, but it's a new era. And so I personally, I wear a mask where I'm expected to wear a mask. I'm not going to be one of those that makes a scene and say, nope, governor said you don't have to wear a mask, I'm not wearing it here. You're not going to find me unobedient to that. But at the same time, if I'm socially distanced and nobody's around me, I'm not going to wear a mask, because I feel like I'm doing what I need to do to protect myself and protect the people I'm interacting with.
What do you think, Miles?
Well,
Can I just add a little bit to that?
Sure.
Because I know it's kind of a broad question, goes into a lot of different things, but was it handled right? Let's say, I'm not even going to talk about national. He touched on that. Was it handled right as far as local or the county? Do you think Brannick did a good job? Put you on the spot with that.
Well, man, I think the pandemic, COVID, whatever name you give it, was different for everybody, right? Like, nobody knew how to manage this process. Like, it was new. It wasn't a flood. It wasn't a little ice storm that came. It wasn't something we've seen before. Obviously, if you date back, there was things like the Spanish flu and other things that went on in society. But regarding this time span, leaders just tried their best. And I had to, in my heart, figure out a way to give grace to people that were in leadership when I thought they should have expedited certain processes. I think people tried their best. Obviously we need to follow ethical guidelines. Man, I wear my mask in areas that needed to be wear a mask. Obviously I think healthcare is a personal thing, but you're not governing for everybody with my mindset, right? And so I think that was, that was a big factor for me, this national election, all that. There's a portion of society that wants to manage their own health. Don't tell me what to do. I ain't wearing a mask. If I need to check myself, I deal with my immune system and all of that. But there's another group that we need to look after, right? And that's the part of government. You're governing for many different people with different mindsets. And it really just allowed me to have more empathy, right? To, man, this person really feels like this is super serious. And I have close friends that passed away. So obviously I believe the coronavirus is real. I don't think either one of us would disagree on that.
No.
It's just a difficult thing, man. But how we move forward, we need innovation and leadership in that aspect. But I think it was real tough. I think you look at cities like Houston when they move, obviously different metropolitan type community, that traffic, and everybody's in hubs in certain places. Beaumont is a little bit different. And so I think people were frustrated with both sides, like, to the restrictions and no restrictions, right? Like, we want you to do this aggressive. It's a hard thing, right? And we just have to understand we're governing for citizens who feel this way and feel this way, and you're going to hurt somebody's feelings, but you want to try to do the best job. So I'll give grace, man. Honestly, it was I can't.
That's what makes it such a complex thing, because really when this thing first started, my initial thought with the virus and the whole controversy over masks was, man, find me something better to interject or to put into a society, if I can put it in those terms, to divide people.
Oh, man.
Find me something better. And, man, I can't think of anything. Because if you think about it, it goes into so many different avenues of life. And it's augmented our whole process of thinking about politics, arguing at the dinner table, separating of families. And so when I asked that question about, does the cost of the quarantine outweigh the seriousness of the virus, it seems like, man, the more you think about that, the more complex it gets.
I would agree.
It really is. I wonder what we're going to look 50 years from now, 25 years from now. How are we going to view this event. You know,
Well, yeah, if I may, I think what we're going to look at is how fast, relatively speaking, we were able to develop a vaccine. I mean, it's unheard of. You know, when President Trump's Operation Warp Speed kicked off, and you know he was pushing incentives to all the drug manufacturers to, you know, man, we got to find something, and it's unprecedented to find vaccines with the effectiveness and efficiency of what they've been able to do as quickly as they've been able to do it. And, you know, hopefully by this summer, what President Biden said will become true. You know, we'll be able to go and have cookouts on July the 4th and actually celebrate not figuratively Independence Day with the founding of our country, but literally our Independence Day from the virus, you know, and we can cast off the mask, you know, and hopefully we can be there by the summer.
and there again, there's that. You say something like that, and there's one side that goes, "Yes, we need to look after the people that are vulnerable," and there's the other side that says, "I'm celebrating 4th of July no matter what you say.
Well,
I'm having my barbecue." You know,
hopefully though, by that time, a high percentage of the country will be vaccinated, and you know we can celebrate safely without concern that we're going to infect other people or that we may become infected from other people.
Okay, man, I hit you with one more good one. Homelessness, because I got a lot of questions about that. People want me to talk about the homeless population increasing. Miles, I'll go to you first. I mean, as far as, you know, it's obviously not a question you can just say, well, this is how we fix this. You know, but what are your thoughts on that as far as the growing population of homelessness, maybe how to deal with it as far as the city level?
Yeah. Well, I'm getting notifications. People wondering how to tune in. It is Facebook Live.
Oh yeah. It's they can go to Civil Discourse on Facebook.
Okay.
And it's live. The link is up. It's on YouTube as well as Civil Discourse.
Okay.
It's all live too. And I posted the link on Jefferson County Politics. I posted on the Civil Discourse page on Facebook.
Click that link in. Okay. Homelessness, man, that's a multi-layered situation, right? There's no one true solution to it, right? You can have a shelter, you could do different programs, you can feed the homeless. You know, there's a certain population of the homeless that have migrated from different areas. So until we get data, right, do we have data to solve these issues? And I think when we get the data, then we can allocate resources correctly. I think we have Salvation Army and they have so many beds. And so just making sure we don't reduce those beds, like having resources for the homeless population. They're part of our community. They're citizens just like us that are just in a different position. So I think, one, we need to understand there are people already boots on the ground working on the homeless situation, right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, I want to be your city council for Ward 2 so that therefore I can bring resources from the city budget to the citizens who are working in the homeless area, right? That's the goal, is to make sure that the taxes and the resources that we have, we are giving those to the people who are doing the work. I want to partner with them in that way. And so I don't have to become the expert in that area, right? There are people that are experts in the area, people that were once homeless and they're now overseeing certain shelters or they're leading programs. So we want to make sure that as a city or as a councilman, I am best supporting that. So when situations arise, we have something for these people, right? We're not reactive, we're proactive.
Gotcha. Mike?
Okay, so I have become very aware of how our homeless situation has increased, and so much so that I started the Beaumont Homeless Coalition along with Councilman W.L. Pate, and then the mayor actually made it an official part of the city. And Miles, have you ever been to one of those homeless coalition meetings? I didn't think I'd seen you there, but
how many meetings have y'all had?
We've had probably 6.
Okay.
And so we try to meet monthly, the first Thursday of the month. So what we've done with the Homeless Coalition is we have tried to bring all the various agencies that provide services to the homeless under one roof so that we can understand what everybody's role is. As a city councilman, I can tell you we have data on the homeless. You know, we know through the Southeast Texas Regional Planning Commission, they do a point-in-time count every January. We have an idea of the magnitude of our homeless population. And what we found is you're homeless for one of 4 different reasons. You either have some sort of an addiction issue, you have some sort of a mental health issue, you have fallen on hard times through just circumstance and you no longer have a roof over your head, or you're one of those people that you just like to live off the grid and that's your cup of tea, that's what you want to do. So we can help some of those. We're not going to help the ones that want to be like that. Behavioral issues, mental health, we have come to understand that Spindletop, and Catholic Charities offer some things. And what we try to do each month is we have a speaker from each one of these groups talk about what they offer, and we try to collaborate. We don't have any funding that has been allocated to the Beaumont Homeless Coalition. So, I've heard it said in the past that when the ice storm hit, we weren't ready. We weren't ready and didn't have any ideas. Well, that's not the purpose at all of what the Homeless Coalition is for. That's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to collaborate with each other and figure out how can we not duplicate resources. For instance, it's sad, it's almost comical, but it's really sad. We have so many good, well-meaning people here in Beaumont that want to feed the homeless, but it's like one church comes and they go to under the overpass and feeds them, and then after 45 minutes, here comes another group and they feed them, and we have the best fed homeless population in the state, is what I've been told, and so it's not a matter, but they can't eat all the food. And of course, what happens to the garbage? Well, it goes on the ground. What happens when it goes on the ground? It blows all over. So what could the city do? Well, real easy. We could put trash containers out there so they can throw their garbage away. But we could also coordinate with the people that want to feed the homeless. So we have a calendar instead of 3 different groups coming to feed them on one day. We said, why don't you take Wednesday, you take Thursday, you take Friday, and you have efficiencies created that way. So that's what we're trying to do. And in terms of a shelter, it's hard to do anything. It's, unless you have a place for them to go. So you've really got one shelter right now, and that's the Salvation Army. And
I was going to joke and say Ford Park. Sorry.
Well, we got to read them. Yeah, maybe so. But the Salvation Army, and it's their property, they want to move their shelter and make it a Boys and Girls Club. Great. Okay, what are you gonna do with the homeless? Well, as it happens, they have 2 buildings that they own that used to be a shelter right across from some other place. Some other place is the Mecca. It is the hub of the homeless community. It's a soup kitchen. It's where they feed them. But in addition to that, you've got Henry's Place right next door. And Henry's Place is where they can go wash their clothes, they can shower, they can get their mail, so you have that right there too. And what we're trying to do as a homeless coalition is to rehabilitate these buildings that used to be shelters. They've been mothballed since 2005. And over the years, they've suffered vandalism, they suffered damage, but not to the point where they can't be rehabilitated. What I was able to do was to advocate for the city to set aside some of our community development block grant funding that we receive from the federal government to go towards this rehabilitation of these 2 structures. Now, this is a match type of funding, so they've got to raise $200,000 to get our $200,000, but that should be more than enough money to be able to completely rehab these buildings and provide shelter to those people that need something, and then they'd be just literally right across the street from a place to be fed, a place to get their clothes washed, a place to take showers, and of course they'll have bathrooms in the shelters too. So we've got a plan, but it's going to take some time to raise the money for the Salvation Army to move forward. And in the meantime, and this is really ticks me off, those 2 buildings suffered malicious vandalism in the last month. It was a group of kids. They've been caught. The police have them, but they're going to be put in the juvie system. They're minors. But they went through with tire irons, and for no reason, they broke every window, kicked in doors, just because they were thinking that was fun. It's set us back probably $30,000 according to the last report I've seen, how much damage was done. So that's just nonsense. So what we're trying to do now, I was able to go to Home Depot and get a grant for $5,000 from fencing materials, and now we're looking for some volunteer labor to help put up the fencing, because we're going to have, it appears, security fence around the structure, because this is the kind of thing that happens.
Sounds like you got a couple of kids ready to do some fence labor.
Well, that could be part of what happens.
Just my little take on it. But
but there is a plan, and we're working it. So
okay,
and we talk about it at our.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I mean it's because it's a hot button top. People talk about it. I get that all the time.
Well, yeah, and as a citizen, when you hear about the Homeless Coalition, and the confusion is, where was the plan for the people when it came to the ice storm? Because I think religious organizations stepped up in that role.
That's
lady named Robin Myers was a huge advocate. So from my understanding, it's like the organization, that's great, but like when they needed something the most, who was there to help them? And that's what our nonprofit organizations and our churches in the area stepped up during that time span. So for me as a citizen, I want to partner with the people who are actually doing that work. Like when there was an ice storm and those people needed something, a church stepped up. I can't take the credit. I can't. I helped out in small ways, but nothing compared to the people that were putting the boots on the ground. And so those are the people that I want to focus on when it comes to that, in addition to everything else that's going on, in our area for the homeless.
Right.
Yeah, but I just to briefly respond to that, it's not the coalition's role. That's not what we were set up to do, to be able to open up and provide resources. Individual members of the coalition, the churches in the coalition, yes, they opened up, but as a coalition, that's not what we do. We provide a forum for everybody to come together and say what they do. Now, the city obviously could have done something. We could have opened up one of our facilities as a shelter. The mayor chose not to do that, and I'm not sure that I agree with that. In fact, I don't agree with that decision. When the mayor made the decision to not open the Civic Center up, you had to have churches come up and take the leadership roles. Homeless people are citizens also, and when they need emergency services because they're out there in freezing weather, and we can't even provide a warming station for them, I think that's shameful. I think we could have done more, but I'm glad that the church on South 11th stepped up. I'm glad that the Salvation Army stepped up, and I was happy to help them with their efforts and bring a kennel or two over there because another thing, people didn't want to leave their homeless camps because they couldn't take their dogs, and so we had to have kennels and stuff over there. There's a lot of logistics to think about.
Yeah, it's not just throw up a building. And,
right. You can't just open the door and say, y'all come on. You've got to think about it logistically. But our city government has a whole department for that. We should be able to think logistically. And just like a hurricane, we knew this was coming for a week before it got here. And we're able to open up the Civic Center for hurricane survival, but ice storm is just as deadly. So we could have, I think, done more. And then the communication aspect of it, which is something that is really unforgivable to me. We need to do better in communicating with the people when we have emergency situations. To me, the way it should be is I don't care if it's just going on Facebook Live. You set a time each day during the emergency situation where people know they can tune in, whether it's 12 noon, 6 o'clock, 10 o'clock. They can tune in and they know they're going to get a message from someone at the Emergency Management Operations Center that this is what's happening. We shouldn't have to be digging around trying to find information on, multiple Facebook pages and hoping that it's up to date and current. We should be able to, we want to hear our leaders speak and know what's going on. I think it's terrible that we don't do a better job of that.
Yeah.
Well, I think for me, it was just, when it comes to, the homeless and like having that plan, or even you talking about the communication, like I'm not of the belief of shifting the responsibility to someone else. Like, you are my city councilman for my area that I live in, Ward 2. It's incumbent on you to do that, and everybody else who represents these wards. And we kept seeing miscommunication. And for me, like, are you in some way implying that this is somebody else's issue or your issue? And like, as I was taught personal responsibility growing up. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but as a leader, I'm held responsible, right? And so it was mixed messages. It was almost like, oh, we can't open up the city facility. Did you guys collectively meet, or was it just a message that you posted about one individual? Like, regardless of that response, like, you guys, I see you as a united front. You represent the city. My taxes are going into you guys' management process to make sure it's efficiently spent. And like, the management of it was just not one of a statesman. Like, it was so, like, it was almost attacking the vitriol, the drama. And it was like, whoa, we really have citizens who have issues. And it is not to tag you. Like, I think the whole council, you guys work together, and those are essential things for me that are important. And I'm looking at this as a young person who's want to step in city council, like, wow, this is why we need a new experience. This is why we need something new, because we're shifting the blame to saying that it was the mayor or this person. This person's like, no, we knew this was coming. At least we should have recommunicated this back to the city. Let's not out one person. Let's collectively say we didn't. Not they didn't. We didn't have a plan.
Well, let me respond to that, because it's important that you understand how something works here.
Mm-hmm.
The mayor, by city charter and by state law, is the emergency management director for the city. She has the ability in an emergency to order an evacuation. She has the ability to commandeer buildings to do something. She and only she can do these things. So do I shift the blame? No, I put the blame where the blame lies. I can't go say we're going to open up the Civic Center, and I can't direct the mayor to do it. I can tell her how I feel about it, but ultimately it is her call. I can't do anything about it if she says no, other than, okay, we got to go to plan B. Let's find some shelters that can operate, something else that can open, because the mayor doesn't want to do this. She thinks that, the churches, and I've got a text message from her that said it. She said, we can rely on the shelters and the churches to do it. The city doesn't have to do that. As it turns out, the shelters and other, nonprofits did step up, but there was no other choice, because the decision had been made. We're not going to open up city resources and city facilities. So it's either, everybody else steps up when we don't do that, or people freeze to death. And so, I think that as the emergency management director by law, the mayor, whoever it is, carries that weight on their shoulders. And, as a city councilman, you can't do any more than say, okay, well, I tried, she said no, and that's it. So you got to go to do something else. So that's what I did. And as far as, miscommunications, I say what I know to be true, and I say, look, you got this Victory Temple open, or you've got the Salvation Army open. I tried to fill what I saw as a void in communication from the city and offer what I knew to be true. I'm not spreading mistruths or misinformation. I verify what I say. And, of course, the mayor gets mad when I do that, because it might make her look bad. It might make her look bad because she's not doing her job. And I'll just say it. I'm going to be brutally honest. You talk about a united front. I'm not up there just to go along to get along. I've never
heard
up
that
there.
statement a couple of times. I guess I never understand where that implication comes from. Like, when I say a united front, we can disagree. Me and him could disagree. We're still a united front. Like, I vehemently have disagreed with people thousands of times. That the get along to go along. I'm not interested in that either. Just to make a public statement, because it's this misinformation out there that's saying, oh, he's for unity and he's for the get along to go along. No, we may actually disagree, but I'm going to be a statesman in how I handle myself. That's the contrast to that. It's not this I'm just going to fold into the group or I'm some kind of puppet. No, I'm not interested in it. That's not why I decided to put my name and hat to run for city council Ward 2. But collectively, like, more strategy and synergy is essential to why someone would run for city. Like, you guys are together. That's why 4 votes is obviously, that is essential. Like, those things are important, and we need to really get back to that. Like, and we saw that in national politics, this divisiveness that has spread through because you disagree, or you see it this way, you're this. We get taglines all the time. You've got taglines. But, like, how do we move forward? And for me, politics is supposed to be that vehicle for change. Like, that's why I'm deciding to put my name out there. So when I say united front, that's what I mean. Like, these people really are passionate about this. But in a time of crisis, we coming together. We're going to figure this out collectively.
Well, that's fine in theory, but in a time of crisis, you have one person designated as the decision maker. So you talk about collectively figuring it out. That's not what the model exists. You don't have that model. In a time of crisis.
But did you guys know this was coming before it came?
Of course we did, and that's my point. You work with your emergency management operations team, paid city employees to do this. We have people, this is their job. This is all their job is. And they are supposed to work, and the city mayor is supposed to work with them and lead that team. We have, the mayor makes that decision on how it's going to proceed. We have professional people that do this for a living. And, they have to take their marching
you
orders.
Trust the process?
Well, the process is dictated by city charter and state law, and we can't, without changing the charter, which requires a vote by the people, or state law, which requires a vote by the legislature, we have to respect the law because we all take an oath to uphold the Constitution and laws. So the process is what it is, and it may be flawed. Maybe it does need to be changed, or maybe you need to have a new mayor. And you know what? We're going to have a new mayor. So, hopefully whoever the new mayor is looks at it from a little bit different viewpoint.
Very good. Very good, man. So to kind of cap this whole thing off, again, thank you both for coming in here so much. But what just happened right here, the exchange of ideas, a little bit of disagreement back and forth, like, that's what this is for, and that's why I want to do this thing, and that's why I wanted to do this thing from the get-go, is because this is how you get informed voters. People are going to watch you, and actually watch the interaction, the exchange of ideas, and be able to decide, right? How many times do we get to watch people running against each other actually sit down and have a conversation? It just doesn't happen. You get your little snidbits on the, you'll go on the news, talk for 2 minutes, maybe something like that, maybe some other formats. But we need more avenues like this to where we can sit down, have these civil conversations, and actually talk about things in a serious manner in that longer format style. You can't solve, we're not going to solve homelessness in 10 minutes.
Right.
Right. It's just not going to happen. But anybody that had any questions about this, that was genuinely wanting to know, and they live in Ward 2 that watches this episode, is going to have a better decision of where they want to go. And to kind of round this off too, it can't just be, in my opinion, it can't just be while the race is happening. Like, obviously we're hot and heavy right now. The race is coming up. We're getting closer. People are talking about it. It's the buzz. But for a lot of people, unfortunately, once the race is over, their care and or concern of local politics is going to be out the window. And they're going to go back to watching whatever Biden's eating for breakfast or whatever, whatever their choice of media outlet is. Mm-hmm. They're going to watch their Tucker Carlson. They're going to watch their Don Lemon, whatever they're doing, right? And we have to keep this type of content going. And I don't mean that maybe in the form of formal debates, right? just the continuation of the exchange of ideas, because originally when I thought about this, it was going to be this right here and an audience and a moderator. And it's a learning process for everybody, because y'all are the ones talking. The actual test, they don't know it actually, but it's the crowd. Can they sit down, shut up, and watch the exchange of ideas, important ideas about their city take place? Can we keep them from staying on their soapbox and think they get to stand up and yell? It's like, no, make this a thing to do. You want to run for something, if you want to talk about important issues in the city, you come on a format like this and you exchange the ideas, right?
Right.
The more of that we can do, the more content that's out there, I think it actually works better for y'all. It works better for us. The kickback, Floyd, doing a great job. Shout out to Floyd, getting people on there all the time. I listened to your show with him on there the other day, talking about, yeah, we're doing this, I'm over here. And again, I appreciate you coming in, taking time off of your campaign, both of you. But I think, again, we have to figure out a way to get more people interested in not just the signs, not just the faces on the TV, but what they're actually talking about.
I'll just make a quick statement. That's incumbent on the individuals that are in office. And so when we talk about the idea of stagnation and the ideas that need to be pushed forward, we know we're in a digitalized area. You know, people need to hear stuff and more frequent. And so we need civil people at the table within the chambers. I'm talking about within council. We can go rewatch these meetings. And right. So I think we need good examples. People are compelled by individuals that are in office to continue to stay engaged, involved. That part of it is on the people that are in office. And when people are just dissatisfied with what they're seeing within council, they check out. They're done. They want something new. And so some of that is going to be incumbent on the incumbents. You know, that's important, right? You can't control every factor, but, you know, there are right. things like that people just checked out when it comes to national. And at this point, you know, some of it is local politics. People, they're kind of done with the drama. They're kind of done with those kind of things. They just want civil leadership. This is not the get along to go along type thing. Let's not have them misconstrued. It's just leadership.
Right. Man, again, thank both y'all for coming in. Mike, Miles, I really do appreciate it. Thank everybody for watching. We'll have another episode coming at you soon. Until then, stay tuned. Thank y'all so much, man.
Appreciate
really
it.
Appreciate it.